All right, so I wish I could say that we get to do a lab and do something fun today, but we've actually got to get through chapter 14 before we get to do that. So yeah, I'm going to have to be talking for both sections for a couple of days. Okay, so I'll go ahead and apologize for that now. So let's try to get this, see how far we can get for this today. Okay, so now, at this point, all right, we kind of like taken this cross section and we're kind of looking down on that spinal cord. And this is the type of stuff that we are seeing as we look down onto that spinal cord. Now here's where things are going to get a little interesting. Once again, information needs to go up, effects need to come out, okay? So in this matter that we're looking at, we're going to see that what we have is this H or butterfly shaped. On this gray matter, we have these horns that exist. And those are termed, because they're on the posterior side, they are termed the posterior horns. Now, if you remember, the rootlets that we made note of, okay, on that posterior side, that's where the rootlets are connecting, or meeting, I should say. Then, if we look to the front, on the anterior side, it does look like there's a horn there, but they're actually kind of muted as like a horn. They're just kind of like these projections that are coming out, and those are going to be our anterior or the ventral horns. We're going to see the anterior root, that spinal nerve, okay, because see, we have this information, these little rootlets on the anterior side, and that's going to be motor fibers. Motor meaning movement, okay, and therefore an effect. Because remember, we've got to take sensory information in, and we have to get an effect out, okay? We're going to see there's a commissure existing between the two gray sides. So that's the gray commissure, and it gives us a connection from the left to the right side of the spinal cord. I have a spinal nerve exiting on each side because I have to serve the right side of the body and I have to serve the left side of the body. And we have to have some communication. This allows for that to occur.
Is it that hole or is it the line?
The area, this little line going between the two sides.
Okay, the hole is something else.
The hole is where the CSF gets to flow. Okay? Now, note, on each side of the gray matter, we have some horns that exist. That is on the lateral side, okay, because median would be the middle. Those lateral horns are going to be the way that the nervous system communicates to my viscera, to the autonomic nervous system. But for our purposes today, in this chapter, we're focusing on what happens with skeletal muscle. So we are focusing on that posterior horn and the anterior horn. Those are the two parts of that gray matter that associate with my skeletal system. Is everybody with me on that? Now, in this picture, can y'all see back there in the back? Okay. What do you notice in that picture that they're trying to represent by the red and the green?
It goes up and down the spine.
I've got sort of a representation for information that can move by way of what they're terming in the red ascending tracts and green descending tracts. Now note, they're trying to show us the green and the red as one being on one side, one being on the other side, but you have both green and red on each side. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. Ascending tracts. What direction is that? Up. Ascending tracts are what we refer to as those fibers and grooves and all that sort of stuff that will be moving information up the spinal cord. It's going to take that sensory information up, because that sensory information needs to be integrated, processed, so that I can get a response, which would need to come by way of a descending tract. All right, and note, TRACTs. Okay, why they just couldn't go with a K, I don't know. Okay, but tracts. So everybody kind of following me here. All right. So
I have a question actually. So I thought that the afferent information came in through the back and then the efferent came out through the front. Is that also that the afferent is the ascending and efferent is descending?
hold on to your thoughts,
Okay,
because we are going to get to that.
okay.
Okay. So just real quick before we get to that, real quick, if you'll notice in this picture, they're giving you names of these tracts, okay? Like they'll say the gracile fasciculus, cuneate fasciculus, posterior spinocerebellar. What? Okay, anybody else got that feeling?
Mm-hmm.
Where you feel like your eye's gonna twitch? Okay. I'm not going to specifically ask you, but what I want you to understand about these tracts, okay? Well, first of all, I'm glad to know that, everybody understands ascending versus descending, up versus down. The other information that's given to us about the tracts based upon their names, it lets us know where information starts and where it ends. So that means we're going to find areas of the brain or the spinal cord, okay? It's letting us know where something starts and where something ends based on the name. So it would, if you were going into neurology, yes, okay? You were going into musculoskeletal, yes. Chances are you would need to know all of this. For our purposes, I'm not going to get you that detailed. All right? So, we have to note, oh, it did move, didn't it? Okay. All right. So, in looking at the movement of this information, okay, information in, effects out. This white matter surrounding the gray matter, those are my bundles of axons. Because where were the nerve cell bodies?
In the gray matter.
In the gray matter. Okay? So this white matter, this is my bundles of axons. Because their nerve cell body is going to be in the gray matter, going up and down. So that axon is embedded in the white. Does that make sense? Okay. So, this is what it's like all the way up and down this entire spinal cord. That gray matter, the axons, and the white matter, and then everything eventually coming out as that spinal nerve that will be serving a certain area of the body. Okay? So, they're termed, like we noted in the last slide, columns, or somebody got real inventive in lab that day, funiculi. Okay? Columns. Because that's what they look like. They look like columns going up and down. And like I mentioned, there's 3 areas for these columns to exist. We have columns that'll be on that posterior side, all right? Columns on the anterior, and columns on the lateral. And then each of those columns will have their tract. For example, anterior spinocerebellar tract. Anterior lets me know it's on this ventral portion of the spinal cord. Spino, well, what do you think spino refers to? Spine. Cerebellar, that area of the brain. So in other words, the information that will move up, that will move on this tract, I should say, okay, the information makes its way to the cerebellum. And that's the point, that that information will be processed. And that response will come from. Not, because, you know, a lot of times when people think about the brain, a lot of times they simply think about one portion of the brain. That. All right? This tends to be the part of the brain. When somebody says brain, okay, this tends to be the part that people think about. Do you ever think about all that? No. Believe it or not, that side's way more important. And trust me, this side's cool. Okay? I mean, yeah. All right? So, cerebrum,